All right, here what I want to do, I want to go through the actions panel. The actions allows you to do tedious things that you would do over and over and over again in one quick shot. So it would record what you would do in all those actions and then make one action out of it. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to go to the window panel and open up actions. So here I have some actions that you cannot see right now. Oh, there we go. So it came up and here we are. So there's some default actions that Illustrator gives you. Now, actions are really useful in Photoshop. There's more you could do with them. Here in Illustrator, not as much, but there's still some pretty cool things you could do. So some of the default actions here we could see. So if I click on my object here, I have a logo that I made. It's grouped, it's a vector, all good. So this one is opacity 60. So really what it's going to do, I'm going to select it and I'm just going to click on the action. I'm going to play the action. So if I play the action, it goes through these few things. Opacity 60%, that's it. So now I have a 60% opacity logo or vector, whatever it was that I chose and selected and played it. All right, so I'm just going to let that go. Perfect. Now there's a bunch of other ones here that you can use by default, and that's all well and good, but I don't find they're super useful, but you can get some use out of them, obviously. Either way, we're just going to create our own. And the one that I saw that was pretty cool and I've been using is to create multiple versions of a logo at different scales, scaling it down in different ways. So what I'm going to do, and what you could do as well, is kind of go through some of these ideas here, but really pretty simply, I'm going to make a new set. I'm just going to call it mine, or my actions, whatever you want. And I'm going to actually make a new action. And this action, what it's going to do, not every click, but some of the recorded things, some of the things that I'm going to do are going to be recorded. You're going to see them as they get recorded here. And those things will get recorded. And then when I play it back, it's going to go through all those steps very, very quickly. So let me show you what I mean. So let me just make a new action, create new action, or you could went to the drop down, make new action. I'm just going to call this scale. And you can even set it with a keyboard shortcut. So I'm just going to say F1 shift. And I can even give it a color. When you go to button mode, colors might help out. So I'll just say red. Okay, I'm going to record now. You don't just say okay. Once you say this is good to go, you press record, it's going to start recording. So right now, and time is not a matter. I can take as much time as I want. It's not recording time. It's only recording some of the things that I do. Now, if you're doing certain effects, it might not record them. If you're doing certain functions here, it might not record it, but it does record major changes to whatever potential transformations you're making. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do transforms. So here I have this object, this vector graphic, this logo I made. And what I want to do is I'm going to scale it down multiple times so I can see kind of what my logo would look like very quickly at 50%, 10%, and see if it works, that kind of idea. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm recording right now. If I want to stop, I can stop, but I'm not. I'm just going to keep recording. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm just going to make this action. And so you're going to see the tedious thing I'm going to do over and over and over again, where if I just created an action, which I'm doing, I press play once, it does it all for me. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to copy and paste in front, which is edit, copy, and then paste in front, Command F. So now I've duplicated it. So the next thing I want to do, I kind of want to do this mathematically. I'm going to go to Object and Transform, and I'm going to move it, and I'm going to move it down 1.5 inches, 90 degrees, and there it is, and I'll say okay. And now you see what happened. Not only did it record me copying it, not only did it record me pasting in front, it's now recording the move, and it'll have exactly what I did on the move, exactly those measurements. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to scale it down. So I'm just going to go to my scale tool. I can go up here to Object 2, and I'm just going to go to my scale tool. I'm going to double click. 80%. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create different percentages of it scaling down so I can see what my logo would look like at different scales. So I'm going to say, okay, there we go, done. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing over again quite a few times. So Command C, Command F. I'm going to move it down, Object, Transform, Move. And there it is again. I'm just going to say okay because I remembered what I did, and I'm just going to double click here. Okay, let me do that again. All right, now that I've done that, I've done it a few times, and we can see obviously the distance we could have changed to, which is totally fine. I'm fine with that because at least I get an idea of how it looks when it's at these different scales. And I'm just going to stop my action. Now, once it's stopped, I can do whatever I want. It's not going to be recorded in there. And what I can do now is, instead of doing this over and over and over again for every action I've ever, or every logo I have, just to see if it works at different scales, I can now just select one and click on the action I want, press play, and now it's just going to go through all those steps for you. And it's just going to do it for you no matter what, whatever object you click on. If I make my own object now right here, it doesn't matter. I'm going to scale, I'm going to do the same thing, press play, and there I go. It's going to do the same thing for me. Now, I'm sure the more complex objects, it's going to take a little bit longer, but these are pretty simple objects, so that's not a big deal. So what I could also do now, if I can go to this drop down, I have a few options. Like I said, new action, new set. I could duplicate a certain action and play around with it. I could even go back in and actually delete some of these things. I don't want that. I could throw it out. Like certain parts, I can actually edit the action and edit some things out that I don't want it to paste in front, or I want it to scale at a different way. So that's up to me too. The other thing I could do here as well is this little other column here. I could actually put in a spot where it says, when you move it, open up the dialog box, so I could change up the movement. I could change up the measurements of what I actually want. So when I go through it, instead of going through the whole thing, it would stop here. It would open up the dialog box, so I could change up maybe the percentage of how far I want it to go down. Maybe here I could change up the percentage of how much I want it to scale. But if you don't put those in, it's just going to go through the whole action, which is totally fine. Start recording, record again, all these different options here, playback options, you can clear actions, you can load actions. So if you went online and you found some actions, you could load them in. There's a few different ways to do that, but realistically some of the default ones, but I just like making my own. And also there's this button mode where instead of seeing it this way, you could actually click on a certain one. You don't have to see all the action, everything that's involved with the side of it. You just click on the action and you're good to go. So that's why I made this one red. You can see that the action is there. It kind of helps me pinpoint to figure out which one I want there. So I'm just going to click on that, and then that goes. And there we go. So those are how actions work. Obviously using the default ones that we have here, or making your own, which you might find something that you do over and over and over again. Why not make it an action? Why not attach a keyboard shortcut to it, or however, and then it's just that much easier and your workflow becomes that much quicker, better, and you just become more efficient.